Prince Harry has indeed arrived at the High Court in London and his case against the publisher of the Daily Mail begins. The Duke of Sussex is one of a number of public figures who are suing Associated Newspapers Limited for breach of privacy.
When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped back from royal life in January 2020, millions watched the couple chase their dream of freedom across the Atlantic Ocean. However, behind the curated social media posts, the couple is facing their most serious crisis yet. The question haunting their marriage is simple, but impossible. Can their love survive when they each need to be in different places? And who will keep the children if they eventually split? Join us as we examine the major pressure points pushing Harry and Meghan toward what insiders describe as a potential breaking point in 2026. Inside the explosive custody storm, to understand how Harry ended up fighting multiple simultaneous legal battles in 2025 and 2026, we have to go back to where it all began. His landmark victory against Mirror Group newspapers in December 2023. This wasn't just a win, but also a validation of everything Harry had been claiming for years about tabloid misconduct and the invasion of his privacy. Official confirmation that he had been the victim of illegal information gathering. Justice Foncourt found that phone hacking at MGN was widespread and habitual during the relevant period. Journalists and private investigators had systematically targeted Harry, along with hundreds of other individuals, to generate stories and sell newspapers. For years, Harry had insisted that journalists had systematically invaded his privacy, hacked his phone, and used illegal methods to generate stories about his personal life. The royal family had quietly settled similar claims years earlier, taking payouts and moving on. This mindset, understandable given his win, shaped everything that followed. He ramped up other cases and doubled down on his courtroom crusade. What he didn't fully appreciate was that winning one case doesn't guarantee winning them all. And pursuing multiple simultaneous legal battles, each consuming enormous resources and emotional energy, would eventually create problems even Harry's determination couldn't overcome. The judge found that 15 of the 33 articles Harry complained about involved phone hacking or other unlawful information gathering. MGN was ordered to pay Harry €140,600 in damages, a substantial sum that represented only part of his claims but carried enormous symbolic weight. But the real victory was the public vindication. MGN issued a public apology, something Harry had sought for years. The company acknowledged unlawful information gathering and expressed sincere apologies to the Duke. In February 2024, they agreed to pay substantial additional damages, bringing Harry's total compensation to over €440,000, plus the majority of his legal costs. The victory emboldened Harry. If he could take on Mirror Group and win, why not target every other publisher he believed had wronged him? Why not fight for security protection he thought he deserved? Why not use the courts to force accountability from institutions that had operated with impunity for decades? Harry refused. He wanted accountability delivered in open court. When he testified in June 2023, Harry became the first senior royal to give evidence in court in over 130 years. The historical significance wasn't lost on anyone. For 3 days, the Duke of Sussex sat in the witness box, detailing years of paranoia and the psychological toll of never knowing if his private conversations were being intercepted. His testimony was intensely personal. He described how the constant invasion affected his relationships, made him distrustful of friends, and contributed to the breakdown of past romances. He spoke about feeling surveilled, about the coincidence of private conversations appearing in print days later, and about the emotional damage of seeing intimate details of his life splashed across front pages. The judge's ruling vindicated many of these claims. The vetting that changed everything. Let's rewind to autumn 2016. The leaves are falling in London, and Prince Harry is falling in love. Standard royal protocol kicks into gear. Level 3 security vetting by palace officers. This was systematic cultivation. When you see the same person appearing repeatedly in the same elite circles over multiple years, despite having no apparent means to afford such a lifestyle, intelligence analysts start connecting dots. Her documented income came from minor roles and brief appearances. She held briefcases on game shows. She played forgettable characters in forgettable episodes. This was her public narrative. The struggling artist, the underdog. Normally, this is routine. A check for outstanding debts, criminal records, embarrassing associations. A formality, really. But with Meghan Markle, something different happened. Something that made alarm bells ring not just in the palace security office, but deep within British intelligence services. Think about that for a moment. What could a cable television actress have in her background that would trigger intelligence community red flags? The woman who would eventually inspire millions with her rags-to-royalty story. But the surveillance data told a completely different story. The intelligence report allegedly placed this struggling actress on Mediterranean super yachts worth tens of millions of dollars. It documented her presence at exclusive gatherings where a single night costs more than most people earn in a year. It showed her circulating through the closed, invitation-only circles of Gulf elites and Middle Eastern power brokers. Princess Anne, known throughout the palace for her no-nonsense approach and deep connections to the security establishment, was reportedly among the first senior royals to read the file, and what she saw made her blood run cold. She looked at the timeline. She looked at the finances. She looked at the travel logs. And then she asked the question that Harry refused to ask. She was being sponsored, and in the intelligence world, unexplained wealth or unexplained access is the single biggest red flag for a security compromise. Princess Anne understood something that Harry, in his romantic haze, couldn't see. These weren't random invitations to glamorous parties. According to palace insiders, the vetting process revealed something that no PR team could explain away: a glaring, impossible contradiction. Between 2008 and 2012, Meghan publicly described herself as a struggling actress, barely surviving in the brutal Hollywood audition circuit. Someone covered the travel. Someone covered the access. Someone facilitated her presence in rooms where billionaires make deals that reshape nations. The dossier suggested something that would shatter Harry's romantic fantasy. Meghan Markle wasn't struggling during those years. Who paid for all of this? Because here's what you need to understand. Struggling actresses don't casually float through elite international power spaces without massive financial backing. They start asking uncomfortable questions about patronage, obligation, and what exactly is being exchanged for all that access. The palace security team would have cross-referenced travel records, financial statements, and photographic evidence. They would have mapped out her social network, identifying the common denominators. And what they found was a pattern that stretched from California to the Mediterranean, from Monaco to the Middle East, all funded by sources that didn't appear on any tax return. When legal costs became a courtroom scandal, by early 2025, a new problem was emerging in Harry's legal battles, one that would generate headlines almost as dramatic as the cases themselves. The sheer cost of his legal campaign was spiraling out of control, and judges were starting to express serious concern about whether the expense bore any reasonable relationship to what was actually at stake. They would spend approximately 18 to 19 million euros. ANL's costs would be similar, around 18 to 19 million euros on their side. Combined, the two sides were projecting nearly 40 million euros in legal expenses to litigate claims that Justice Nicklin described as really rather simple. The issue came to a head in January 2025, during a costs management hearing related to Harry's ongoing case against Associated Newspapers Limited, publisher of the Daily Mail. Harry and 6 other high-profile claimants, including Sir Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, Baroness Doreen Lawrence, Sadie Frost. That phrase, really rather simple, cuts to the heart of the problem. This wasn't a complex commercial dispute involving billions of pounds or intricate technical questions requiring extensive expert evidence. It was fundamentally about whether ANL journalists and private investigators had used illegal methods to gather information about these claimants over a specific time period. Justice Nicklin and Senior Master Cook were clearly unimpressed. In their ruling, and former Liberal Democrat MP Sir Simon Hughes were suing ANL over allegations of unlawful information gathering spanning nearly 2 decades. Both sides had submitted their projected legal costs for taking the case to trial. The numbers were staggering. Harry's legal team estimated. The decision represented a stunning rebuke to both legal teams, particularly to Harry's side, which had driven much of the case's complexity. The judges were essentially saying, "You're spending 4 to 5 times more than this case reasonably requires, and we're not going to allow it." They slashed the approved costs dramatically. For Harry personally, the implications were sobering. Even under the reduced budget, his share of the claimant's €4 million budget would be substantial, likely well over €500,000, given that he's one of 7 claimants, but instead of 18 to 19 million euros per side, they approved total budgeted costs of just €4,084,000 for the claimants and €4,445,000 for ANL. Costs ruling also revealed uncomfortable details about how Harry's legal team had been operating, probably accounting for a significant portion of the claims. And that's just if he wins. If he loses, he could also be liable for ANL's costs. They ordered Harry's legal team to hand over documents relating to these payments. He wrote, "I am satisfied that documents held by the claimants that can support a case that a witness has been paid or offered other inducement for their evidence, whether directly or indirectly, should be disclosed." Documents disclosed during the hearing showed that the claimant's side had been paying witnesses for their evidence, a practice that's not illegal, but raises serious questions about the reliability and motivation of testimony. Justice found court, in a separate ruling, this opened a new line of attack for ANL's lawyers. At a preliminary hearing in January 2026, just days before the trial was set to begin, ANL's legal team made what were described as an professional misconduct related to how witnesses had been recruited and compensated. Exceptionally serious allegations against some members of Harry's legal team, specifically accusations of dishonesty, fraud. David Sherborne, Harry's lead lawyer, pushed back forcefully in written submissions. The allegations made by the defendants are exceptionally serious, of fraud, dishonesty, and professional misconduct. These were career-ending allegations if proven, and they injected a new level of drama into proceedings that were supposed to be about phone hacking, not the lawyers themselves. ANL's barrister, Anthony White KC, told the court they cannot be introduced by assertion in opening written submissions and are not simply commentary on pleaded issues. He added that ANL's claims went far beyond attacking witness credibility. They were explicitly seeking findings of calculated attempts to mislead the court. Justice Nicklin, who had already shown impatience with both sides during preliminary hearings, issued warnings about the conduct he expected during the upcoming trial. While the specific language of those warnings remains partially confidential, observers in court described them as stern, reminders that the proceedings needed to focus on the actual legal issues, not on side battles between lawyers or theatrical demonstrations. The cost crisis also raised questions about Harry's financial sustainability. The submissions were simply an attack on witness credibility, not formal misconduct allegations. But the damage was done. The integrity of Harry's legal team was now under scrutiny, and the judge would need to carefully navigate these accusations during the trial. But for Harry, there was never really a choice. He understood the cost and accepted it as the price of confronting systems he felt had wronged him. What he does next, however, is something few saw coming, and it will leave you stunned, barely remembering the handful of British visits when they were too young to form lasting memories. For Harry, this is a tragic loss because his children have no real connection to their British heritage or royal family. Archie and Lilibet have only met King Charles a few times, never developed relationships with their Uncle William or Aunt Kate, and know nothing about the country that shaped their father. Harry feels strongly his children deserve to understand where they come from and experience the British culture that's part of their birthright. Meghan sees it completely differently, viewing keeping children in California as protecting them from the toxic environment that damaged her. She worries exposing Archie and Lilibet to Britain would subject them to the same cruel scrutiny and racism she endured, questioning why she should voluntarily put her babies in harm's way. This fundamental disagreement about what's best for their children has become one of the most emotionally charged aspects of their marital tension. Neither parent is wrong in their concerns, but opposing views create an impossible situation where someone must sacrifice deeply held beliefs. Sources say this conflict over Archie and Lilibet's upbringing has led to increasingly frequent arguments, with both feeling the other doesn't understand or respect what they're trying to protect. While the couple struggles privately over their children's future, their public image has taken hit after hit as professional ventures fail to meet expectations. The California dream that didn't deliver. When Harry and Meghan relocated to California in 2020, they arrived with ambitious plans and sky-high expectations about their future in America. The couple envisioned themselves becoming major forces in entertainment and philanthropy, using their royal profile and global recognition to build an empire that would dwarf anything they could have achieved within the constraints of palace life. They signed lucrative contracts with streaming giants Netflix and Spotify, deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars that seemed to validate their decision to leave everything behind. Their public statements promised groundbreaking content that would educate, inspire, and entertain audiences worldwide, while establishing them as thought leaders on issues ranging from mental health to social justice. 6 years later, the gap between those promises and the actual results has become painfully obvious to everyone watching. Their Spotify partnership, which was supposed to produce compelling podcasts that would dominate the audio landscape, ended in spectacular fashion, with company executives making the extraordinary decision to publicly criticize the couple's work ethic. The streaming platform's leadership used terms like grifters in private conversations that leaked to the media, suggesting Harry and Meghan had taken massive payments while delivering minimal content that failed to justify the investment. Their Netflix productions have fared only slightly better, generating headlines, but struggling to achieve the cultural impact or viewership numbers that would make them indispensable to the platform. The couple's docu-series about their own lives attracted curiosity-driven viewers initially, but was criticized for being self-serving rather than revelatory. Harry's Heart of Invictus documentary, while well-intentioned in its focus on wounded veterans, failed to capture mainstream attention or generate significant buzz. His Polo series, released in late 2024, was met with such indifference that it barely registered in the cultural conversation, with many viewers questioning why anyone would care about an elite sport that feels disconnected from the lives of ordinary people. Meghan's attempts to launch a lifestyle brand called American Riviera Orchard have encountered repeated obstacles and skepticism from both industry insiders and potential customers. The brand's rollout was plagued by confusion about its actual offerings and purpose, with critics noting that the luxury lifestyle market is already saturated with established names that have spent years building credibility and expertise. Her Netflix cooking show, titled With Love, Meghan, premiered to harsh reviews that accused her of being out of touch with everyday people's concerns during difficult economic times. Critics pointed out that watching a wealthy duchess in a beautiful mansion demonstrate recipes using expensive ingredients felt tone-deaf when many families were struggling with grocery bills and inflation. The failure to achieve the celebrity status and cultural influence they sought in America has been particularly devastating for Meghan, who made enormous sacrifices to pursue this dream. She walked away from a successful acting career on the legal drama Suits, where she had finally achieved stability and recognition after years of struggling in Hollywood's competitive landscape. She left behind the prestige and global platform that came with being the Duchess of Sussex, a position that gave her access to world leaders and the ability to shine a spotlight on causes she cared about. She expected to build something even more impressive and impactful in California, leveraging her royal experience into a brand that would command respect and admiration. Could a couple who couldn't manage their own staff successfully navigate the far more complicated challenge of saving their marriage? The staff exodus and workplace reputation. Behind glossy photographs and carefully crafted statements, Harry and Meghan have developed a disturbing reputation as difficult employers who drive away staff at an alarming rate. Reports suggest approximately 25 employees have left their service over recent years, with many citing unbearable working conditions. Former employees have described an atmosphere of constant criticism and unrealistic expectations, where nothing was ever good enough and staff felt they couldn't win, no matter how hard they tried. Some characterize Meghan in particular as a demanding perfectionist who micromanages every detail while being impossible to please. Others noted both struggle with basic management skills needed to run successful organizations and retain qualified professionals. The couple vehemently denied these allegations, insisting they're wonderful employers with high standards expecting excellence. They suggested staff turnover is exaggerated by hostile media, and any departures were mutual decisions. However, the pattern of repeated exits tells a story that's hard to dismiss, especially when it continues year after year. This staff exodus matters for their marriage because it reflects deeper issues about how they operate as partners and decision-makers. If they can't successfully manage employees or maintain professional relationships, it raises questions about whether they have the skills and temperament to navigate complex personal challenges. The workplace chaos also adds stress to daily lives and creates constant disruption, making it harder to focus on solving bigger problems. While Harry and Meghan struggle with professional management, their personal relationship has faced a test that gets to the heart of what their marriage means. The potential security win that changes everything. Harry's fight for security in the UK has gone on for years, with many setbacks and losses in court. However, some insiders believe a change is coming soon. They say that 2026 could be an important time. The Home Office is reportedly looking at Harry's security arrangements again, which has led to speculation. Some think the government might be willing to ease its position and provide him with at least some armed security when he visits Britain. Although nothing is confirmed yet, the possibility of a change in policy has given those involved a sense of hope, suggesting that after many frustrating years, a solution might finally be close. This news is likely positive, as it removes a big hurdle that has stopped him from bringing his family to Britain for longer visits. If the security problem is really fixed for good, it takes away his main reason for not going home more often or letting his kids spend quality time in their heritage country. The chance of finally having proper protection for his wife and kids has motivated Harry and given him real hope that he might be able to make up with his father before it's too late. For years, the security issue has been both a real worry and an easy excuse. But now that obstacle seems to be breaking down, pushing Harry to face what he really wants and whether he can fix the damage to his relationships. For Meghan, however, the potential security win represents her worst nightmare because it removes her strongest justification for refusing to return to Britain. As long as safety concerns provided a legitimate reason to stay away, she could point to those practical barriers. But once security is no longer an issue, the conversation shifts to her personal unwillingness to face the emotional trauma of returning, which is much harder to defend, against Harry's desperate desire to see his dying father. Sources say the security review has intensified their arguments and brought their fundamental disagreement into sharp focus. Meghan reportedly feels that even if security is resolved, that doesn't change the emotional toll returning would take or eliminate genuine concerns about renewed media attacks. The UK question has started to overshadow almost every decision they make and has become something Meghan doesn't even want as a topic of conversation anymore. The tension reached a breaking point during the Christmas holidays of 2025, when these issues erupted into arguments that sources describe as the most serious marital crisis the couple has faced since getting married. The breaking point and divorce speculation. As 2025 ended and 2026 began, sources close to Harry and Meghan started using words like broken and breaking point to describe their marriage. The dispute over whether to return to Britain has evolved from an occasional disagreement into a constant presence threatening to destroy everything they've built together. One insider told reporters that Harry and Meghan are broken in many ways, and that Harry's drive to return to Britain could truly break them completely. The fundamental problem is that both are caught in agonizing positions with no good solutions. Harry is pulled between his commitment to his wife and children in California and his powerful sense of unfinished business with his father. Meghan faces her own impossible choice between supporting her husband's desperate need to reconnect with his dying father and protecting herself from returning to a place that caused genuine trauma. For her, Britain is bound up with some of the most stressful and painful periods of her life, and the idea of returning triggers, memories, and fears she struggles to articulate even to the person who loves her most. She knows that if security is resolved, the expectation will be that she has no reason left to say no, which terrifies her. Friends say neither is being unreasonable or selfish, but their two very different anxieties are pulling them in opposite directions with devastating force. The tension isn't rooted in a breakdown of affection or commitment, but in fundamentally incompatible needs that can't both be satisfied. Harry needs to be in Britain, and Meghan needs to stay away from Britain, and there may simply be no way to reconcile those positions without someone sacrificing something essential to their well-being. Reports suggest palace aides are even drawing up contingency plans in case Harry decides to push for returning to Britain and Meghan refuses to follow, language implying they're preparing for a potential split. Other sources claim the disagreement has become so deeply emotional that it threatens to tear them apart both geographically and emotionally, creating a scenario where they might end up living on different continents while trying to maintain some version of their marriage. What do you think is the right answer for Harry and Meghan? Should Harry stay in California and accept that reconciliation may never happen? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.